think of major films that we've all loved and adored for many years, you know, the ones that you keep watching time and time again, and you never get tired of them, do you? You know, they're always ones like The Sound of Music, Some Like It Hot, Ben-Hur, all of that sort of stuff. And you kind of think, wow, what a terrific film. But I've been lucky enough, as many people know, to meet some of the people behind the scenes of these terrific films, and more importantly, how they truly came to light. You see, when they all start out, it's always about who they're going to cast, particularly if that particular film has also become a huge stage sensation. Now, this is the backstory of one said very same film. You know, it really started out very smallly, but then got so big it became a colossus literally around the world. And when I mention the words Oliver, yes, you'll all be asking for a bit more, won't you? Remember that with Mark Lester. Well, of course, this particular story, the musical version at least, really became something of a powerhouse, all thanks to the brilliant composer Lionel Bart. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Lionel Bart couldn't sing or indeed write music or play music virtually. I met him very briefly towards the end of his career. And I don't know if you know this, but the actual rights now belong to Sir Cameron Mackintosh. That's right, the musical impresario. That's because Lionel sold them to Cameron. Yes, he was in financial dire straits. Lionel's story is fascinating to say the least. But back as ever to the wonderful thing that was Oliver the musical. It had already been a David Lean epic, of course, way back in the 1940s, but then they decided to put music to it. Lionel's sort of way of making music was to simply sing the song into a tape recorder, and then musicians had to decipher exactly what notes he was singing. Yes, it was that difficult. What's interesting here, though, is the casting, you see. When you look at the cast and you kind of think, wow, you know, yes, there were sort of names, but there weren't mega names, but there could have been. Let me explain. When they were casting Oliver, they thought initially they needed to get mega names on board. We told you a couple of days ago about how Dame Shirley Bassey had recorded a wonderful version of one of the songs from the show, As Long As He Needs Me, taking it to the top of the charts, but sadly they didn't see fit to cast Shirley in the role of Nancy. Now, what was interesting was the main role, the one that everybody knows, Fagin, you got to pick a pocket or two, all of that. Well, initially they were looking for big names again. And one of the names that they came up with was none other than Sir Laurence Olivier. Now, Sir Laurence had done incredibly well, as one can imagine, the world's most reputed actor. You know, he's up there, Larry Darling, all that sort of stuff. But you see, the bosses over the movie didn't think, first and foremost, they could afford his fee. And more importantly, they didn't think he was a box office draw. More recently, his movie The Entertainer, the John Osborne classic Now, had literally bombed at the box office. So they thought, well, no, it's not going to be him. Another hat in the fray was none other than the brilliant entertainer Sir Bruce Forsyth. Knew him well, good friend. What was interesting about him, though, as he told me, you know, he wasn't necessarily known as an actor or indeed a musical theatre star. That came a little bit later on the London stage with Little Me. So they cast right back, quite literally, looking at funds to the man that now nobody else could truly think of anybody else creating Fagin. The brilliant Ron Moody. Met him as well. What a character he was. And of course, the movie became a colossal hit, quite literally around the world. But you see, how are these things starting out? Laurence Olivier never truly forgave the producers for overlooking him for this particular role. He felt he would have been ideal as Fagin. So Bruce Forsyth told me that there were only two roles that he truly wished he'd have had, that of Fagin and that of another rumoured offer of a Bond baddie. Neither worked out. But of course, could you now imagine anybody else in those roles of Oliver the Musical? Lionel Bart, as I said, couldn't believe his luck when he struck gold, and he found it very difficult to replicate the same success again. But thank goodness he struck gold at least once, and what a legacy he left behind. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.